Homeless bunny. 4. Tianyu, I heard the twins cry out as they jumped down from the second floor. Their auras flared briefly upon landing, but they didn't care in the least. The pair rushed over to take their seats at the bar and stared eagerly at me as I made the finishing touches on a spinach, tomato, and feta frittata. Morning. Junior was already seated at the bar, nursing a large mug of coffee. He had the morning paper loaded up on his scroll and a binder full of briefs from his various contacts on the counter. He raised his mug to the twins in silent greeting. I swear, those two never woke up before noon before you came around. Yeah, well, no one cooks like he does, Mill said matter-of-factly. Damn straight, I nodded. There were few things I took unconditional pride in, but cooking was at the top of that list. Divine Chef. The title is earned. It'd been 2 weeks since I arrived in Vale, a mere blink for an immortal, but much had changed in that time. Junior had sent out feelers, even reaching out to several experts at Vale University to gather information on legends and myths from back when the Four Kingdoms were monarchies in truth. The twins had completely shed their haughty, aloof personas in favor of trying to cozy up to me for more food, not that that was anything new. They even started looking up different recipes online, daring me to improve on them. They'd yet to find a recipe I couldn't upstage in some way. I was the best chef in the world before my century of experience cooking for gods, thank you very much. I wasn't about to take an L from some upjumped online blogger. I'd die of shame. Their faces lit up as I slid 3 plates of frittata over to them. The eggs were fluffy and mild, the tomatoes sweetened with an extra hint of wood chi and spinach blanched ever so briefly to get out a bit of the irony taste before being dried and added to the final product. The feta was crumbly and added a wonderful contrast to the rest, setting an exquisite balance that'd satisfy even the fabled god's tongue. Coupled with a glass of freshly squeezed orange juice, and whole wheat toast, it made for a hearty yet healthy breakfast that even the weight-conscious twins couldn't deny. I watched them stuff themselves for a minute, delighting in a job well done. When we were finished, Junior dug around in his pocket and slid over a card, my card. Here, got you something. My contact finally came through with your city ID. You are officially Tianyu, sole survivor of a rural village that was wiped out by Grimm. Your parents were locally trained amateur huntsmen who unlocked your aura for security reasons. I looked at the picture. It was one taken 2 weeks ago. Mel had forced one of her chokers on me, saying it'd make me look punk. I humored her with the grace of a centenarian humoring a little girl. Then I read more closely. Junior? Why does this thing say I'm 17? Ah, well. Look, you've got the mother of all baby faces. My guy couldn't swing anything older than 17 and even that's pushing it. He's got you there, Fluffy, Mill said with a poorly hidden smirk. You're short. And adorable, Mel added. With big, red eyes like a baby's. And huge, floppy ears that make people think you're even younger than you look already. Seriously, and everyone says we look young for our age. Yeah, totes not fair. I sighed. The twins were right. Whereas they looked like they were in their mid-teens but were actually in their early 20s, I looked like I could be anywhere from 12 to 17 and was fucking immortal. It couldn't be helped. I could wear a glamour all day every day, but that was a hassle. I had more important things to think about than trying to remember whether or not I put on magic makeup in the morning, like figuring out what I wanted to cook for breakfast. Fine, everyone's bullying me today, I grumped. I'm surprised you didn't go with the bastard Schnee thing. Ha! You think I want that kinda heat on me? Junior scoffed. No way, man. Besides, they have a unique inherited semblance that they get from their mother, right? I nodded. Then, with a wave of my hand, I flexed my chi and willed it into the visible spectrum. A golden light bloomed from my hand, expanding to form the wu-seeing elements framing the yin and yang in the iconic pentagram. There, see that? I have their glyphs. It was the semblance I'd decided on. I couldn't just bust out an authority without drawing more attention than I wanted, but I also had no intention of not being, well, me. I figured using a glyph like the Shnees would be a fair compromise. I'd picked up a fair bit of both Western and Eastern sorcery over the years and knew I'd have no trouble replicating dust casting. The bastard Shnee thing was a long-running joke between us now. After I gave them a brief demonstration of what I could do with the 5 elements, they genuinely started to question my lineage for a while. I swear, your semblance is such bullshit, Junior said, head shaking. Thanks for patching up my boys the other day, really saved me on the hospital bills. Don't rely on it, I warned. I wasn't blind. They were criminals, even if I did have them wrapped around my pinky with my cooking. I gave them good food, as my honor as a chef demanded, but I never strengthened them beyond mortal nutrition. I'm a chef, not a doctor. If I find your men did something unforgivable, the cops will be the least of their worries. Yeah, they know. No murder, no rape, no children. Trust me, they're my rules too. It's just bad for business. Good. Boring Mel yawned exaggeratedly. She flipped her long hair over her shoulder. Can we talk about something other than gang talk? Well, Mel, I did read up on some interesting folk tales. Ugh, no offense, but that's a really lame hobby. Hey, you can learn a lot from stories like that. If you figure out how to make me a seasonal maiden, let me know, Mel said dryly. I rolled my eyes. That had been one of the first stories Junior found for me, and the one I considered to be the most likely to be valid. There were too many stories of young heroines appearing to save the day across history and continents for there to be no truth in them. It seemed likely to me that they existed and belonged to a secret sorority of elementalists, probably with powers and teachings passed down from mother to daughter. That I could easily anoint the girls with similar powers went unsaid. They were cute in that bratty little sister sort of way, but I didn't think I could trust them to be responsible with powers beyond mortal reckoning. So, Miltiades, the more thoughtful twin, interjected before Mel and I could dive into our old argument. Anything planned, Fluffy? Not much. I'm still thinking about new dessert recipes. Maybe something to help people cool down after dancing all night. I mused. Junior, after countless people complaining about not having enough seating space to eat my cooking, had greatly expanded the dining area. The dance floor now competed evenly for floor space with the dining area, and the second floor was all but converted into semi-secluded booths for romantic dinners. My presence had turned his club into the biggest underground attraction overnight. Like what? Ice cream? Parfait? Some kind of cocktail? Mill asked. She was the quiet one, but had a massive sweet tooth that never failed to get her out of her shell. I don't know. I have lots of ideas, but only so many I can put on the menu. How about you 3 try my creations over lunch and pick your favorites? Yes. The twins cheered, giving each other a high five. You're spoiling them, Junior said, eyes rolling. You don't need to be here if you're busy being the best information broker in Vale, I replied snidely. Hell no. You save me a piece. Yeah, that's what I thought. X. Hi AA. Melanie cried as she brought her blade heel down on Miltiades. She missed, but immediately pivoted to turn that axe kick into a donkey kick at her sister's kidney. Miltiades, not missing a beat, caught the blow with her claws, taking a half step back to bleed off momentum. She wrenched her hand to the side, the twin prongs of her claws catching her sister's single blade and twisting her foot. Taking full advantage of her sister's momentary distraction, Mil lashed out in a series of slashes and stabs that left the air sizzling in her wake. It was so fast that several of the Seong family's mooks could only watch in dumbfounded awe at their enforcer's speed. Mel allowed her leg to fold, collapsing to the ground bonelessly to avoid the worst of her sister's attacks, before turning the fall into a backwards cartwheel that lashed twin uppercuts with her blade heels. It would have gutted a man from crotch to throat had even one strike found their mark. This was their routine during the day. They had to keep their skills sharp apparently, so they repurposed the dance floor into a sparring ring. They had their scrolls hooked up to the TV so if one of their auras dropped too low, they'd know. I watched placidly as they went back and forth. The tide of battle ebbed and flowed like the sea. It was rhythmic, like a dance. In my hands was a large bowl of ice cream, still being stirred for maximum fluffiness. I decided to get a little exotic and settled for vanilla with shards of candied ginger, cinnamon, and nutmeg. Familiar, but with a unique kick of class. Finally, a chiming noise rang through the club's speakers. Melanie had won this bout, though as far as I could tell, it was more by luck than skill. The two were evenly matched and it really could have gone to Miltiades just as easily. The two walked up to me, tired but satisfied. "So, what did you think?" Melanie asked, a confident smirk on her lips. I continued stirring. "Depends." "On what?" "On whether you want my honest critique or flattery." She placed her hands on her hips. "Oh? Do tell." "All right then." "Mediocre," I said truthfully. I wasn't comparing the twins to Luo Hao, I wasn't that unreasonable, but to Yinghua. Laura. Rob. Jabra. Hell, even Maeve when she shaped up a bit and quit being a useless alcoholic. I could see the heavy frowns on their faces. To clarify, it's clear that you're extremely well trained as far as people who aren't professional huntsmen go. You know what the other will do, to the point that you sometimes start moving before the other even begins to attack. And that's a huge problem. What's wrong with that? As a team? Nothing. It's beautiful. When you're sparring against each other though, you're too familiar with your other half that it's hampering your growth. At this point, I don't think you're learning anything as much as you are engraving into your bodies the ins and outs of fighting other people like yourselves. You'll be much less successful against other fighting styles. Miltiades huffed. Well, we can't do much about that. Wasn't finished. Though you're both very skilled, it's clear that neither of you have much talent for combat. You're better than average, but that's all. You compensate for a lack of innate talent with teamwork, and I'd imagine it works for you most of the time, but you could do much better if you sharpened your movements more. You both have too much flair and not enough substance. There were points in your spar when either of you could have ended it decisively but chose to grandstand and pose for half a second. You're not on a runway, you're fighting. End it? That kind of showboating implies you're used to the other twin attacking during your brief lull to keep you safe from retaliation. It's really not doing you any favors. Lastly, I've noticed that you're both horribly short on breath. Endurance really isn't your strong suit because, again, you count on each other to buy time so you can catch your breath mid-fight. This works for you both because you're usually fighting gangbangers who are little more than civilians. If they have aura, I'd bet their training is even worse than yours. Okay, now I'm done. The twins' faces shifted from shock to rage. Their normally beautiful, pale skin took on tinges of ruddy red. Melanie scoffed. Yeah? What do you know about fighting? Yeah, you're a chef, Fluffy, Miltiades huffed. What do I know of fighting? I asked. What did I know indeed? It wasn't like I was trained by the greatest martial mistress in history, developed a personal martial art based on the phases of the moon, fought dozens of deities, and helped murder the king of the end or anything. I loathe fighting. Then you don't get to talk. Just make your ice cream. Oh, no. I get it. The thrill of combat, the flow of battle. The feeling of accomplishment and fulfillment as you cross blades with a worthy foe. The sheer, unadulterated validation of life as you stand victorious over the corpse of an obstacle you thought you could never overcome. I get it. I loathe fighting because I loathe bullies, and fighting weaklings makes me feel like a bully. The twins fell silent at the pure conviction in my voice. My first love was cooking, but it wasn't as though I couldn't understand a warrior's heart. How could I not with a wife like Ludo? How? Combat was in my nature as a Campione, and I had been honed to a razor edge by the best of the best. Melanie took in a fortifying breath. Yeah? Prove it. You think you're so tough? Let's dance, bunny. I sighed and stood. I suppose after a speech like that, I can't blame you for calling me out. Fine, I will trade pointers with you, just this once. I called over a gang member and thrust the bowl full of ice cream into his hand. Don't stop churning. Keep it in the ice bath. If you stop, I'll kill you. So saying, I stepped onto the dance floor. Homeless Bunny 5. Despite the twins' grandstanding, they had to wait a few hours for their auras to recharge. On the plus side, I finished making my ice cream. I tasted it, decided to go with the vanilla ginger recipe, and roped the entire unpowered gang membership into stirring huge bowls of ice cream over ice baths. They could take turns. Sure, I technically held zero authority in the Seong family, but I only needed to give Junior a bowl before he said my word was law. The mooks probably hated me, but meh, they were mooks. Hours later, I stood and watched as the teddy bear DJ, Frank, hooked up our scrolls to the TV again. Our auras displayed as full, though I was intentionally clamping down on mine to avoid overloading the system. It felt like I was wearing a straitjacket. And cement shoes. And a noose tied to an aircraft carrier. Ideal. It really wasn't a big enough handicap, they deserved more. They would have lost to Jabber before I gave him daggers made of Tiangu's teeth. Guy turned into a bit of a monster as far as mortals went after that. I reached down and pulled my apron from my waist before tying it around my eyes. What are you doing? Melanie asked suspiciously. Blindfolding myself. Why? I'm giving you ladies a handicap. No eyes, no semblance. You're fucking with me. I am not. I then pulled out the wooden spoon of gentle guidance and held it between the pinky and thumb of my left hand. Flicking posture, as Laura called it. You have two win conditions. First, you can steal my blindfold. If you can do that, I'll consider it your win. Second, you can exhaust my aura the old-fashioned way. Bullshit. This is too much, Fluffy, Miltiades said with a sullen glare. We thought you were cool. Well, fuck him, Mil. We'll just have to teach him some manners the hard way. That's a spoon, Mel. It is. Giving you one chance to grab a real weapon, Fluffy. You know, for the frittata. I smiled placidly. This is fine. The wooden spoon of gentle guidance was made for this exact purpose. Remember, you don't need to defeat me, just get the blindfold off. Miltiades ran her claws against each other, drawing an ominous grinding sound. That's it? I'm going to enjoy beating the stuffing out of you. I shrugged. I was being kind to them by giving them a way out. Winning by our account was tantamount to exhausting a Campione's reserves. Asking a mortal to pull that off was like granting an ant immortality, then asking said ant to move a mountain 1 mile away. It was possible in the most abstract sense. The ant could, over millions of years, wait for erosion to take effect. Then over another million years, carry the mountain a mile away, grain of sand by grain of sand. Technically doable, but it was such an unlikely feat that the very notion was hilarious. I held out my spoon. All around us, the mooks were starting to make their bets. Even Junior was looking down from the balcony where he'd been fielding a call. I'm not underestimating you, believe it or not. Yeah? Don't blame us when we rip up those pretty ears, Fluffy. You don't believe me? Fine, let's trade pointers. Come at me as you please. And they did. They worked in perfect synchronicity, like a pair of dancing cranes skimming the surface of a tranquil lake as plum blossoms floated in the breeze. I shook my head. Hanging out with Chang'e was making me a bit too poetic. I heard the hiss of Mill's claws streaking towards me and ducked, dodging the blow to my throat by the narrowest margin possible. I even left my ear between her claws and wagged it teasingly. She growled in frustration and launched into a series of slashing swipes that impressed me with their accuracy. As pissed as she was, she never let it get to her head, at least not enough to make her movements sloppy. Each slash was aimed at either a joint or a vital organ, uppercut towards the left armpit. Thrust into the opposite kidney. Switch trajectory into my eyes. I nodded approvingly even as I wove between her strikes. She was vicious, utterly merciless. I could see it in the cold jade of her eyes. This ruthlessness wasn't born of knowing Aura would protect me. No, this was born of experience. Miltiades Malachite was as much a huntress as any licensed one, albeit of men rather than grim. Luo would like her, I mused. She had the grace, flexibility, and killing intent. What she lacked in natural talent, she made up for with raw experience and training. Then again, wifey might just kill her for her insolence, always a toss-up with her. I whistled innocently as Melanie joined in. Where Miltiades was as fast and relentless as a pissed-off cat, her sister preferred a stronger, more penetrating style. Kicks, being slower, made Melanie's attacks much easier to parry, but the twins took advantage of that. When I flicked a blade heel away with my spoon, Mill was there, already trying to get under my guard. They'd clearly developed their combat style with the other in mind so that one could make openings while the other capitalized. It didn't matter. Even as I limited myself to their speed, the gap in experience was far too wide to bridge with a simple 2-on-1. I kept a hand behind my back as my fingers lashed out, twirling the spoon and using the revolution to deflect a roundhouse kick from Mel. I then predicted Mill's aggression and stepped into her guard to meet her before bringing my spoon flush against her nose. Miltiades went cross-eyed trying to see my teaching aid. I flared my chi just a tiny bit, filling it with twin elements, metal to penetrate her aura without shattering it in one blow, wood to nourish and nurture so as to not break the delicate girl beneath. Then my fingers blurred and a loud, satisfying snap filled the air. Ah, she cried out, stumbling back several steps. She clutched her now crimson nose as tears stung the edges of her vision. What the hell? This is the wooden spoon of gentle guidance. Respect. Spoon, I said smugly as I twirled it between my fingers. I glanced up to the monitor to confirm what I knew. Her aura had dipped by less than 1%, so little that the system didn't even recognize the drop. "Oh, that is it," she shrieked. She launched herself at me with renewed fury, but this time, I was done dodging. I held the spoon between my index and middle fingers and used the gentle slope of the back to redirect her swipes and thrusts around me. Rage is good, but you should not let it consume you. Instead, be as the stone in the river. Become an isle of calm in the flow of battle, I intoned sagely. All things shall pass, so fill your heart with tranquility and conviction. "Oh, fuck you and your Mistralian fortune cookie bullshit," Mill growled. "Mel. On it." Melanie got on her hands and knees in a sweeping kick that would have ripped out my Achilles tendon. I stepped over it as easily as a child walking over cracks in the sidewalk. Then, I redirected a downward slash from her sister towards Melanie's face. "Hey, watch it, sis," Melanie cried, narrowly dodging the crimson claws. A single petal from the flower in her hair fell to the ground. "Wasn't me." I lashed out again with my spoon in the dreaded flicking posture, this time for the nose of the older twin. Again, metal and wood blended perfectly, my will keeping the two normally warring elements at peace. Another snap pierced the air, sending Melanie skidding back on her butt. "Ow," she yelped, hands clutching her abused nose and sounding a little nasally. "Talking isn't a free action," I said. "You should only talk if the information you're conveying is vital. Or if you outclass your opponent so heavily that it no longer matters." I stepped back a bit to give them room to come up with another plan. Mill helped her sister to her feet and some unspoken message passed between them. I doubted they knew this, but the slight clacking of the stones in Mill's necklace and the rustling of Mel's fur collar gave them away. Not to mention, the sound of petals and feathers. Once I knew the position of their heads, the rest of their movements were easy to follow. The twins glared heatedly at me before charging as one. "You dash. Stop looking down on us." This time, instead of splitting off to my left and right, they worked together for a direct assault. Their attacks came fast and hard, with Mill trying to whittle down my defenses and Mel going low to target my ankles, knees, and even my balls. The twins were vicious and I loved them for it. When I reached out with my spoon to flick Mill, her older sister grabbed her by the hand and yanked her back half a step. They worked like a well-oiled machine, with Mel acting as a mobile foundation for her sister's faster attacks. Then, Mel leapt into the air, breaking their pattern. She twirled like a ballerina, more of that needless flair I warned them about, and gave me a good look beneath her skirt. It might have distracted most men, but that sense of propriety had been beaten out of me long ago, so when her blade heel came slicing towards my temple, I just ducked and gave Mill another flick on the nose. Miltiades reeled back in pain even as Melanie came down from her jump. Without her twin to bounce off of, she could do nothing when my spoon snaked up between her armpit to give her an identical flick on the nose. Ah, the twins yelped as one. "Will you quit it?" I sighed. I could hear the real tears in their voices. I reached up and pulled off my blindfold before tossing it aside. Kneeling, I cupped each of their chins. "I'm sorry, maybe I went a little overboard. I didn't mean to bully you, just break you of your bad habits." "Hell of a way to go about it," Melanie said with a pouting glare. "You humiliated us." "In front of all our goons," Miltiades added. "Bet you just wanted to slap around two girls." "I did not," I said firmly. "Maybe I was a little too harsh." Luo Hao was far harsher with me, but I'd wanted to learn. I did kind of goad them into challenging me. How about I stop slapping you around the dance floor and get you some ice cream? We're not children, Mel sniffed. Yeah, we're 23, you jerk. And taller than you, her sister quipped. I grasped at my heart. Oof, really? Short jokes. Melanie got up and dragged her sister to her feet. That better be damn good ice cream, Fluffy. The best you've ever had. Bunny's promise. Humph, we'll see. X. MNN and the girls moaned in chorus. Best you've ever had, as promised, I grinned smugly. My ears bounced in mesmerizing patterns. I had it on good authority they made me impossible to stay mad at. Melanie wagged her spoon at me. Stop it. We're supposed to be angry. Yeah. Don't think this is forgiveness, her sister added. Junior, who'd walked down from the second floor for his own bowl, groaned in satisfaction. He tapped the counter with a finger. So where the hell you learn to fight like that? And cook like this? I shrugged. My wife taught me to fight. I'm the best chef, she's the best martial artist. We learn from each other. Whoa, wait, hold up. You're married. Oh. Did I not mention that? Yeah. I mean, we often do our own thing so we don't see each other daily, but yes, I'm happily married. Bullshit. You look like you could be in middle school. Yeah, pics or it didn't happen, Melanie said. I rolled my eyes and made my semblance appear in the air. I plunged my hand into the seal and called on Yin, the darkness, to spit out the things I'd stored inside. In particular, a miniature photo album. I slid it over. See? This is Luo Hao, the ruler of the martial realm and my beautiful wife. Holy shit, that's not fair. Miltiades groaned. Yeah, for real. She looks that good and she's stronger than you. I nodded. In direct combat, I can win if I have some time to prep. But yes, I've never beaten her in a straight martial arts contest. Unfair. Totes. Relax, girls, you two aren't terrible, I soothed. You kicked our asses. With a spoon, Mel grumbled. You know what that means for our rep. There is zero shame in losing to me. I'm a special case. We lost to a bunny with a spoon. I chuckled sheepishly. She wasn't wrong. Back on Earth, the twins would have won a lot of respect for facing me, no matter how much I held back. Here, my reputation as the seventh king was non-existent. All anyone knew was that there was a bunny who barely scraped 5 feet tall who absolutely clowned on the enforcers of the Seong family. Well, if anyone thinks ill of you for it, feel free to send them to me for a challenge of their own. Shared humiliation is a great way to build empathy. Right. How'd you get this strong anyway? I told you, Luo Hao taught me. The twins looked at each other. A silent conversation passed between them before they looked back at me with what could be mistaken for predatory smiles. We'll forgive you, Melanie began. But, you need to teach us to kick ass like that, Miltiades finished. I blinked in surprise. I wasn't expecting them to do an about-face like this. Most gangsters, especially enforcers, tended to have highly sensitive egos. They hated losing face and tended to bare fangs at any perceived slight, no matter how outclassed they were in reality. I'd had to gently rebuke more than one wannabe New York kingpin over the century. Was it the ice cream? Had I left such a positive impression on them in 2 weeks? Or were these girls more down to earth than their gaudy dresses first implied? I hummed in thought. I didn't want to empower gang members, especially not killers like these two, and yet my godly power was having trouble confronting the twin gods' magic. Not that I wasn't making ground, but it was unpredictable, as three divine magics blending together tended to be. By the rate the moon was repairing itself, I'd be here for a while. Maybe a year, maybe 10. Wouldn't it be good to have an entourage of my own? Why not guide the Seong family into a more tolerable moral state? It wouldn't be the first time. I helped redeem Maeve, though admittedly I'd just forced her to intern with Annie so she could learn to be a real fucking hero. Besides, it wouldn't really be empowering them, I thought. A few pointers wouldn't hurt, they'd still be within the realm of mortal skill. It'll be hard, I noted. We know, Mel said. It'll hurt. We can deal with pain, Mill added. Come on, Fluffy. Teach us. You girls really want to learn from me? I asked a final time. Last chance to back out. They looked at each other, then at Junior. Their nominal boss shrugged. He had no objections. Why would he object to getting stronger subordinates? Yup. We want to be strong. Strong enough to fear no one. I nodded. Well, looks like I have new disciples. Yes, they cheered as one. Don't get too excited now, I said with a beatific grin. There will be many spoons in your future. Homeless Bunny 6. Another 3 weeks passed and Junior's club started to take on a reputation for fine dining with an ever-changing menu and nightly entertainment. Most days, the club was just that, a nightclub full of loud music and sweaty bodies. On Tuesdays and Wednesdays, however, Junior decided to take advantage of the midweek lull to convert his club into a jazz and cigar lounge, with an expanded menu of course. The dance floor was replaced by a portable stage for live music and the booths hosted guests by reservation only. He was a bit skeptical of the idea at the start, but came to like the setup. The club was useful for gathering scuttlebutt from the streets, but he didn't get to mix with the wealthier crowd very often. This way, he could easily walk around and play the gracious host, occasionally taking a seat at their booth to ask them about their tastes in music, the quality of the food, and of course, a bit of idle gossip. Junior hired on a few chefs at my insistence. As much as I loved working the kitchen, I wasn't going to stick around. So, I began to teach 6 commis chefs, 3 per night on rotating shifts. They were all considered trustworthy members of the Seong family but had chosen to retire from fieldwork for whatever reason and wanted to learn a truly noble trade. Of course, that meant they had their auras unlocked. It was all but a necessity where I was concerned. I had come to terms with the fact that I was just as harsh a taskmaster in the kitchen as my wife was where martial arts were concerned. The kitchen was a chef's battleground and they needed their auras just to keep up with the least of my expectations. I could do 10 times their work without breaking a sweat, but they were learning. Though teaching themes lowered my pace in the kitchen, I found myself smiling with nostalgic warmth. I remembered forcing Laura to peel potatoes for 8 hours non-stop. And then I made her make hundreds of servings of potatoes au gratin until I was satisfied that the technique had been carved into her very soul. I was downright lenient with my new assistants, but they still insisted on calling me a demon. Still, whatever rebellious spirit my work ethic inspired in them died ignoble deaths when I strolled by with a spoon in hand. I didn't have the heart to tell them I could hear their dark grumblings from across the city. Today was a bit of a test for them. It was Friday night, which meant a tide of hungry, horny young adults would flood the club to dance the night away and usher in the weekend. I'd intentionally kept the menu short, just 6 items, and left them to man the kitchen. If they couldn't memorize a paltry 6 recipes, I would be greatly displeased. That was why I was out of the kitchen. I tugged one of the bartenders to the side at random and gave him the night off. Whatever he wanted to say in protest died in his throat when he turned and found who he was talking to. Beating up the twins on the daily apparently gave me quite the reputation, not that the girls were particularly happy with my training. They did their best, I'd accept nothing less for my time, but they definitely felt the sting to their egos each time I sent them to the floor with a wooden spoon. As I'd expected of them, they didn't actually get any stronger. Without a divine blessing or insane natural talent, they were stuck growing the old-fashioned way. No, where they really improved was in technique and polish. I showed Miltiades some attacks based loosely on the mantis style of Chinese Kenpo and Melanie the kick-based French savate. Most of all, I smacked them senseless each time one of them tried to pose or swept their bangs for flair or something equally stupid. They'd never be great, but I wouldn't feel embarrassed calling them my students either. I hummed happily as I offered a college frat boy one screwdriver, just a simple mix of vodka and orange juice. I stood out for being the only one not in uniform, and having a set of bunny ears, but with Junior hanging around the bar to loom over people's shoulders, no one made an issue of it. In exchange, if several chose to wait in longer lines to be served by a human, I decided to let them be. I smiled as an elderly gentleman in a pinstripe suit came my way. By the way he dressed and the way he gestured to Junior, I gathered that this was a contact. I decided to help Junior leave a favorable opinion. "Hello, what's your poison?" I called. "Oh, I don't know. I'm a supplier, you see. I need to chat with Haseong about some incoming shipments," he said. "It wouldn't be good to drink on the job." Junior had no such reservations. "Get me a martini. Dry. I recommend you take a drink, Henry. Tianyu's good, obscenely good." "Well, if my business partner insists. I typically enjoy a glass of scotch, but I'm in the mood for something new, something sweet maybe. What would you offer a man who does more traveling than he rightly should?" "A traveler, sir," I said with a smile. "I hope you find rest here then." Yes, go light on the alcohol, if you don't mind." "I have just the thing." I pulled out a martini glass, shaker, and 3 bottles, creme de menthe, creme de cacao, and heavy cream. I mixed the 3 with ice, slightly more heavy cream than either liquors, and gave it a vigorous shake that made my hands blur for half a second. What did it say about me that I used Godspeed more often for instant cocktails than for fighting? I smirked and poured the mix into the martini glass before sprinkling it with a bit of shaved chocolate. A sprig of mint capped off the creation. I slid it over to him with pride. "Grasshopper, classic, extra ice, for a traveler with a love of sweets." I watched as the old man's face lit up in delight. "Oh, my, that's good. Damn, I kinda want one now," Junior said. "Remind me to try one of those later, but I'm gonna take him upstairs for a chat." "I will. It can even be made with ice cream instead of heavy cream if you prefer," I said. I felt a small presence perk up nearby at that. "Someone else with a sweet tooth perhaps?" I'll look forward to it. You have any trouble, you get one of the twins." "What? Think I can't handle myself?" "You can handle yourself a little too well, Tianyu." "Fine, as you please. I'm happier making food anyway." As they walked off, I turned to the far stool to find yet another guest. I'd heard her coming and felt her aura as she cloaked herself, so when she appeared seemingly out of thin air, I merely bowed respectfully and greeted her with a smile. The woman seemed about the same age as the twins, maybe older, maybe younger. She was breathtakingly beautiful, with a coquettish smile that caught the eye. Her pale, vanilla skin and split chocolate strawberry hair brought to mind Neapolitan ice cream. Or, she did for everyone else. I for one had no trouble piercing through the illusion, revealing a simple, brown-haired girl with an odd bout of heterochromia that she allowed to shine through in her illusion, one brown, one pink. She was just as cute as her illusion, albeit not as flashy or eye-catching without half her hair dyed. I decided it'd be rude to unmask her and let her play her games. More importantly, I noticed something of vital importance: she was shorter than me. That didn't happen anymore. I'd given up on meeting an adult I could physically talk down to. I said nothing, I was far too professional for that, but something about this woman's height sent butterflies of glee fluttering through my stomach. "Hello, miss, what can I get you?" I greeted cordially. She gestured to where Henry and Junior had walked by. Then she held out a dainty hand and mimed sipping at a drink. "Would you like what Junior had?" Her head shook no. "Henry? The grasshopper?" She held out a hand parallel to the bar and waved it back and forth. Mewed. A nod. And a cute scowl. "All right, sorry, won't bring it up again. You want a grasshopper, but not like Henry's." She nodded. I played the conversation back. "Ah, you want one with ice cream." I received a far more enthusiastic nod this time, but still a final shake of her head. She gestured to a stirring spoon on the counter. "Spoon. Scoop. Ah, you just want some ice cream." She beamed at me with a megawatt smile that literally reflected the light off her teeth. Her illusions were truly versatile. "All right, no problem. We have ginger vanilla, almond chocolate, and mint strawberry. What do you dash?" She nodded vigorously and spread her arms wide in the universal sign for gimme. I chuckled and went about serving her. It was an accident that I'd been tampering with those 3 specific flavors to match her outfit. Or maybe it was more of the good old Campione luck shining through. Either way, I wasn't complaining about such an easy-to-handle customer. From then on, the midget I'd come to know as Neapolitan became a regular sight at the bar. She was an unusually sassy woman, remarkably expressive for someone who couldn't talk. She arrived each night, ate more ice cream than was strictly healthy, and vanished when she thought no one was looking. When I told Junior about the little brat not paying, he just sighed and told me not to worry about it. As I understood it, she, Melanie, and Miltiades had gone to the same school, a place called Lady Browning's Preparatory Academy for Girls. It no longer existed, but as alumni of the same place, they knew each other pretty well. Unfortunately, pretty well didn't mean they were friends. If anything, the 3 of them had a bitter rivalry. From what Neo said, the twins used to be bullies who tormented the younger girl because she wasn't as good at fighting back then. I couldn't deny it in good conscience, I knew what the twins were like. X. My palm raced to meet my face with an audible slap as the most aggressively yellow blonde I'd ever seen punched Junior through the bar. He landed a foot away from me, groaning in pain. I stared at him in accusatory judgment. 5 minutes. I was gone for 5 minutes. What the fuck happened? He let out a cough of pain before rolling over onto his side. Not our fault. Blondie came looking for some woman. Started throwing hands, he wheezed. Ugh, did you at least clear everyone out? Yes. I glanced at the leftover food. There were platters of Scotch eggs that someone had ordered and taken 2 bites of before they were forced to run from the rampaging huntress. I picked up one of the unbitten ones and broke it in 2. Golden yellow yolk oozed out, perfectly cooked. Jeremy had really come into his own as a chef, and I was thinking about making him sous chef when I left. What a waste of food, I muttered darkly, and on a day when Neo couldn't come around. The ice cream girl had grown on me. Whenever Junior or the twins weren't protecting me from racist customers who demanded real service, she was the one who happily stepped up to kick their asses so I could keep making food. Sure, I could recognize another killer like the twins, and she was just defending her ice cream supply, but damn if she wasn't convenient. It was a real pity she wasn't around today, because I doubted the blonde would have been allowed to escalate this far. I watched impassively as Miltia batted aside a barrage of shotgun shells. Her superior attack speed allowed her to parry them, while her sister lunged with an overhead kick that would have shaved off a solid chunk of Blondie's aura. Blondie wasn't a pushover though. She immediately stopped firing on Mel in favor of punching Mel's foot away. Mel used the momentum of that punch to launch her in a reverse spin, before catching Blondie with a crisp backhand that sent her reeling. That bought enough time for Mel to re-enter the fight with a flurry of claw strikes that forced Blondie to put her hands over her face. Mel didn't wait around for her sister to tire and present a lull in the fighting like she used to. Instead, she used Mel's flurry as a smokescreen to sneak in a punishing kick to their opponent's kidney. "Ah!" Blondie yelled in pain. She was launched away by that kick into a booth, sending a rain of splinters into the air. The twins gave her no quarter, opting to rush forward and end the fight instead of standing around looking pretty. I nodded. They hadn't studied under me long enough to imprint a full combat style, but they were taking my lessons to heart. Unfortunately, Blondie seemed to have some kind of semblance that amplified her strength and stamina, because she rebounded from that with fiery aura cloaking her hair. Her eyes, already a menacing crimson, shone like rubies in the light as she let out an enraged roar. Melanie tried to turn her forward lunge into a tornado kick, but was surprised when she lost out in the exchange despite the greater speed and wind-up. She let out an undignified squawk that was tinged with pain and humiliation as she was sent soaring across the club and into a glass pillar. Blondie had some decent power to her. "You gonna help?" Junior asked. I considered it. On one hand, I'm a chef. I really don't like fighting. And the girls really could use some experience fighting someone who is closer to their level that isn't just themselves or Neo. Ugh, come on, Tianyu. I'm already out of aura here. On the other hand, I looked at the split halves of the Scotch egg in my hands. Taking a bite, I savored it for a moment and judged my students. Jeremy really did put a lot of work into this. She ruined his cooking, and that's unforgivable. Seriously? You're going to fight her over eggs? Junior asked incredulously. Food is life. Cooking is art. Cuisine is history. A chef is the noblest profession, and she has levied an insult that will not go unpunished. Whatever. Just go. I don't need your permission, but fine. I watched for a minute longer. With Melanie out like a light for the time being, Miltiades was left to fend for herself alone against an opponent who outclassed her in every way. Blondie was tankier, stronger, and about as fast, maybe even a hair faster. Without her twin to coordinate with, Miltiades didn't just lose half her combat potential, she lost most of it. Her claws were far less effective at landing finishing blows, so she was left trying to whittle her opponent down. I wanted her to feel that desperation a little bit. Then, when anger and frustration made her sloppy, Blondie grabbed an overextended arm and swung her around like a rag doll before angling to slam her into the floor. I couldn't have that. Guess that's my cue.